What is going on, dads, and welcome to the Betwixt. It's episode 54, recorded on Sunday, July 18th, 2021. I am your host, John, and thank you for joining me tonight for some Nintendo and... What? Hold on. We have some breaking news here. Hold on. Oh, Nintendo got killed this week. So never mind then. Before we begin, a little note from our sponsor. Support for the Dads After Dark show is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming, can confirm. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. Join over 2 million men and ladies worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you, 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code NINDADS at manscaped.com. Definitely give them your support. We are not only sponsored by them, we are proud users. Hello, everybody. This week, we're going to be talking about the Steam Deck. Ooh. Drew isn't here, and Drew does not like to talk about anything that's not related to Nintendo, so this seems like a good time to be timely and not have Drew fall asleep. So I wanted to spend this week discussing what we saw and what on social media, a few people call the Switch killer, which is laughable. But let's talk about the device a little bit. And if you haven't seen it, imagine a black Switch with wider Joy-Cons and a shit ton of gadgets on them. 7-inch screen, so the same size screen as like the new OLED. And it plays Steam games. And that's basically what the Steam Deck is. This announcement, came out of the blue. I don't think we had any, rumors about it or anything, but we've known since 2017 when the Switch came out that there was going to be some imitation. And I think the most shocking thing about it is that we really haven't seen competition with the Switch. I mean, it's been over 4 years. And so I think the biggest surprise about the Steam Deck is that we haven't seen something like this in so long. That being said, the pricing is out on it. There are 3 models. There's a 64 gigabyte model that costs $400, a 256 gigabyte SSD model, which costs $530, and then the 512 gigabyte SSD version, which costs $650. Now, it went on pre-sale, I guess, a couple days ago or so, and sold out of its initial quantities. This is going to be shipping starting in December, so we're still a ways away. We're 5 months away from actually seeing these in actual consumer hands. But if you do try to order now, the earliest you can get one is Q2 2022. Q2 2022. Think about that. So we're talking, April? We're talking almost a year. So if you haven't ordered one, so you know what that means. These things are going to be fucking expensive on eBay because there's going to be people that really want them that didn't get one. So very interesting. Those prices do not include a dock. It is dockable via PC. If you have like a PC dock, you know what I mean? You plug your laptop in and you get all the docked features. It plays on a monitor or whatever. It's kind of like a really cheap thing. If you're looking at this from the point of view of a Switch, you don't have that sort of like drop-in ease. Most people are not going to have like a Steam Deck set up on their tabletop, right? You already have a PC, more than likely. If you're going to have a USB dock, you probably already have a PC. And I think that goes to kind of my first impressions of this thing. I mean, firstly, when you look at the controls, there are 2 thumbsticks, one on each side. It actually looks really similar to a Wii U gamepad if you had to compare it to anything. Both sticks are at the top, and they're not staggered like they are in the Switch. The D-pad is to the left of the left stick, and the 4 buttons are to the right of the right stick. So much so that the B button, which is the one on the right edge, looks like it's like falling off the machine. But IGN, who's the only company that really got their hands on this thing, which we'll talk about a little later, says it feels very comfortable. So I'm going to trust IGN on this. Even though it looks a little weird, it looks a little straight, it doesn't look like it's curved for the hand, they say it's comfortable. There's also 2 thumb trackpads. Hard to describe these things. They look like, 1-inch sort of trackpads that are under each of the sticks. The idea behind these is to accommodate like mouse gaming, games that, you really want to use a mouse on. This is going to be another big, I think, complaint of mine. I think we're going to see a theme of here, but obviously building a PC-based Switch is going to have the problem of there are a ton of games and a ton of input methods, and when you see a game ported to console, like The Witcher 3, or Slay the Spire, or whatever, it's not so much, can we get it to run on a Switch? Can we get it to run on a PlayStation? It's adjusting the controls to make them not only usable, but enjoyable in a console atmosphere. If you ever go, I'll use Slay the Spire because I've been playing way too much of that this week, and we'll talk about that next week. But if you go and watch like Slay the Spire Let's Plays, they are almost always PC. And this is for a game that's been on consoles for a while. In fact, you can play it free on Game Pass. And the reason is, I imagine it's a better experience to play on PC. I haven't played it myself, but using the mouse to like look at your items and look at your cards really quickly is maybe a little better than like tapping your way through. PC games, this is what it is with PC games. When you think of a classic PC game, and I'm not a PC gamer anymore. I limit myself to consoles now, but I've been a PC gamer in the past. When I think about PC gaming, I think about playing a game with a mouse or a trackpad or whatever you're using, having a keyboard, and really that's it. You can do a controller. There's lots of options in PC gaming, but really, like, there are some games that I would play like with a PC. Like, I prefer playing Diablo on a PC. I like having the keyboard controls. I like being able to move very quickly with like a, I think when I played it, no, I was using a trackpad when I played it. Whereas playing Diablo on a console can be a little trickier. Just movements can be trickier. It can just be trickier. So making a PC version of a Switch is difficult because you are trying to accommodate a lot of those things. So those were my sort of first impressions of it. Doing some research into it after, I didn't really consider pre-ordering this thing, but just trying to find out more information, there were some things that I found notable. When we've seen the ad for this game, they're showing this screenshot of a view of Steam. And this is like considered Steam OS, but I think it's built on Linux. But for all intents and purposes, we'll just say it's Steam. You can technically reset the hard drive here and install Windows on it if you want to. But I don't really care about that. Let's talk about it as, what you're getting in the package. And it's basically a Steam portal. And it's funny because the screenshot you see shows a few very specific games. We see Control, and we see Doom, and we see Hades, and we see a little bit of Ghost Runner. And it's very interesting that those games are on there. I don't think it's an accident. I think all of them are fairly well known. I don't know if Ghost Runner is, but there's a lot of games that start with ghosts, and I had to try to figure out which game that was. But I was like, is that Ghostwire? Is that out yet? But very interesting that Control gets the biggest section of the screen. And I am wondering, remember when we saw the first Switch ad back in 2016, end of 2016? They were showing him play Skyrim, and that was very purposeful. And we eventually did get Skyrim, although it wasn't there at launch. Very interesting that they're using Control to advertise this. It could be that they worked with the developer to make a very specific Steam Deck version of this. The screen size is definitely going to be an issue. PC gaming is usually designed for bigger screens. They've never really had a 7-inch target to go for before. So I'm going to guarantee you that Control is like a game, and Doom Eternal and Hades are kind of built for a smaller screen that they play well. I think they're going to control what they let you play. I've seen some other demos where they're playing like Portal 2, but they're going to be very careful about what they're demoing right now. Not every game is going to be built for this device. But one of the more important things I've noticed with this is that this device is twice as heavy as a Switch. A Steam Deck is 1.5 pounds, which may not seem like a lot, but when you're holding it in your hands for an extended period of time, when you're thinking about portable gaming, when you're thinking about playing it on a bus or a train, holding a device that's 1.5 pounds is something to consider. In relation to the Switch, okay, a Switch is 0.88 pounds. That's with the Joy-Cons. So this is much heavier. It's basically twice as heavy. Okay, that's something to consider. Some other references too. A Wii U gamepad is 17 ounces, so it's like a little bit over a pound. Let's just say 1.08 pounds or whatever it is. So the Steam Deck is 23 ounces, 6 ounces heavier than a Wii U gamepad. So think about like if you ever had to hold a Wii U gamepad for a long period of time, how it felt. And just imagine this being heavier and more dense because it's a smaller space. It's going to be interesting to see what it feels like to hold. And if you are having a company like IGN demo this device, they're sitting down for a relatively short period of time, and then you're taking it away from them, right? You're not letting them sit there for like a whole day of gaming or even an hour. You're passing it around. You're making sure that nobody gets the impression that this thing might be too heavy. These are some of the things that, as a company, you're always careful with, making sure they're playing the right game at the right time. Because if you just give them access to the whole wall and they find some fringe game which crashes on the thing or doesn't work well at all, it's going to end up in a review. So you want to make sure you keep some control of that. The back of this system has like 4 different buttons on it. They're kind of, how do you explain it? If you're holding a Switch, like where your like middle and ring fingers would be is kind of where they have buttons. And this is, again, to accommodate PC gaming. There's a lot of variety in PC gaming. And so a lot of these buttons are programmable. They're all over the place because different games will have different needs. And you're going to be having to program those buttons in. So this is not going to be the garden experience of a Nintendo Switch where every game is, quote unquote, perfectly designed to play handheld, perfectly designed to play with Joy-Cons, that sort of thing. Another issue with PC gaming is these games are big, and the base model comes with 64 gigabytes of storage. It's not SSD storage, it's a different kind of storage, but 64 gigabytes, which, that is what's in the new Switch OLED model. And we all know 64 gigs is it'll start you off with a game. But I looked up the storage space for the games that were being shown on the screen. Control is 42 gigabytes. As soon as you install Control, you've used up over 2/3 of your space for one game. Doom Eternal is 50 gigabytes. 50. Hades is 15, so it's a little slimmer, although surprisingly big for a game like Hades. Ghost Runner is 22. So you can see very quickly you're going to fill up this space. So even though you're paying $400, you're going to want an SD card. That is really no difference than the Switch, except for one thing. With the Switch, they do have physical games. So if you only buy physical games, you may not have to be storing that much space. Some games do have additional downloads. We've seen it before. But you can get away with a lot if you're using just physical games. And that's why I feel like the Steam Deck, even though it starts at $400, really that $530 model is probably the sweet spot. It's only 256 gigs, but you can use an SD card as well. So you can kind of manage your games, and you can make sure you put the games that you're currently playing on the SSD and then move the other ones to your card if you want to. But if you just want the 64 gig and then you're just going to play your other games on your SSD, then you can do that too. You can buy a half a terabyte or a terabyte card if you wanted to. But yeah, just like with the Switch, there is going to be more expense than what you're paying. Definitely that 64 gigabyte model is the most one-on-one comparison with the OLED model because you're talking about a $50 price difference and the same storage. So from that point of view, we can go there. But yeah, PC gaming has, those games tend to be bigger. The mainline PC games are going to be bigger. They're not built for screen sizes like this. They're not built for devices like this. So unless they do some customization, you might find some of them tricky. So we'll see how that goes. Valve is really accentuating this as more of a PC and not a gaming console. Clearly it's for gaming, and that's kind of the default out-of-the-box experience. But they've said you can delete the whole thing. You can play Epic games on here if you wanted to. You can just install Windows. You can just make this sort of a laptop where you just carry around this small device and then just, hook it up to your ports. I mean, you could use it like that. But again, I don't want to talk about it in that way because we don't care about that. Like, I don't care that you can install Linux on your PlayStation Vita. That's not what it's here for. The other thing that I did see was the battery life. So Valve is saying it's 2 to 8 hours of gameplay. That is really suspicious to me. The reason I find that suspicious is that is a huge range. And it almost seems like they're trying to accentuate very indie games, very light experiences to give you to that 8 hours of gameplay to lead you to really believe that there's a lot more hours to this. Your game experience is probably going to be closer to 2 hours, right? If you're playing the kinds of games that you want to play on this, even a game like Control or Doom Eternal, they're going to be closer to 2 hours of gameplay, which is not going to be very much for a portable experience. 8 hours of gameplay, I think, will be like web browsing and streaming and that sort of thing. Maybe Untitled Goose Game. I don't know. But yeah, you're going to get, I'm guessing is going to be less hours of gameplay than you would on a current Switch. And that's expected. These games are not designed for portable experiences. So, we'll see how games might adjust. But yeah, expect it to be like a little less, you're going to have less gameplay, especially for like a new model Switch that gives you more time. So what are my opinions on this thing? First of all, I thought it was cool. I thought the controls were a little strange looking, but like I said, I'm hearing that they're comfortable. Okay. I am not a PC gamer, and the reason why I'm not a PC gamer is I'm a Mac guy. And while there are games that run on Mac, I've played Diablo 3 most recently on Mac, and I have some Steam games. I just prefer to play games on my couch. I prefer to play them in a chair, portably, that sort of thing. I don't keep my Macs up to performance values. I've recently had like a 5-year-old Mac, and plus a lot of games don't run on Mac. And I don't have a PC, and I don't want to buy a PC just for that. I don't need a desk with a PC on it to play some PC games. My kids will play some Mac games, but none of them have a PC. My oldest actually does want to get one. But if I wanted to get into PC gaming, this is probably the route I would go, honestly. I can get myself a small device. It's not going to take up a machine. It's going to be portable. This kind of like is attractive to me, and it's backed by a big name that has a lot of money, right? So that's my initial opinions of it. But will I be getting one? No, I will not be getting one. And one of the bigger reasons is maybe more personal to me. I don't know what you call it, but I don't like to have a ton of games available to me. I tend to be a Nintendo console owner, and then at times I own another console. Right now I'm an Xbox and Switch guy. But my Xbox is limited to Game Pass. I only buy a limited number of games, and right now it's mostly all Life is Strange. I don't like to have a lot available to me. I like to get my games on one console. I like to have one console with a whole bunch of games instead of splitting them off. There was at one point I had my Xbox One, my Switch, and my PS4 in my room. And I'm telling you, it was so overwhelming. I couldn't stand it. So having a game with a PC gaming device where like almost every game is on PC at this point, except for Nintendo exclusives and some PlayStation exclusives, like no chance. But the big reason is I want to see, this is a device I would never want to order before. This is a device, I want to see how it goes. I want to see people having this in their hands for a lot of reasons. Number one, I'm really curious to see how PC gamers like this device. If you're a PC gamer, and I still think, to me, this is the biggest issue. If you're a serious PC gamer, you have a rig, you think about what your video card is, that sort of thing. What level of attraction does this have for you? On one hand, if you go on vacation or maybe you're traveling, you're going to bring this with you. But a lot of serious PC gamers I know play online games. They don't necessarily play single player, where you don't need Wi-Fi or something. So playing this portably may not work so well, while you're on a bus or a train, right? We know what happens when you play games like that on a bus or train. They're more designed. Portable play is more thinking about no network connection. And then also, if you have a very serious PC rig, are you going to spend $500 on this portable device and the game won't look as good and you're going to be on a very small screen? Probably not. I mean, the screen, I think, is 720p. I think it has like a 1280 resolution. I'm not quite sure how it works. I think it has kind of an oddball resolution on it. But, it's basically going to be a screen more comparable to like a Switch or a Switch OLED model. And this is in a time when people were like crying for like 4K on Switch, okay? So just think about a PC gamer that likely has 2 or 3 monitors at 4K next to each other. I mean, you're playing a game at a different level of quality. If you're playing, let's say, Jedi Fallen Order, right? Are you going to be playing that like on the train too? Or you can be like, no, I want to play it on my screen with my surround sound and whatever I have you, right? I mean, I swear half the PC gamers have like ambient lighting and all that jazz. So I'm going to be interested to see what a serious PC gamer thinks of this device. Is it just sort of it's nice to have, or maybe I'll play this particular indie game on it and that's it. I'm not playing Diablo 4 on this thing. Also, the input accessibility. I mean, buttons, sticks, whatever. If you're playing a PC game with a controller, this is not going to be too different, right? A lot of people play PC games using an Xbox or PlayStation controller, right? Or maybe a Switch Pro controller. These are the best controllers, certainly not a Steam controller. But a lot of PC gamers use keyboards, trackpads, mice. You're not going to have that here. I was thinking about Slay the Spire again. I wonder what playing a game like Slay the Spire on this device, where you're like navigating across the screen very quickly, but because you only have a very small trackpad, and that trackpad's probably going to have a very high acceleration. I'm sure you can change it. But if you don't want to use your thumb and go walt to get off a screen, like you can't see this, but I'm like, my thumb is just going, you scroll across a trackpad and sometimes you have to do another swipe because you don't have your pointer speed up. But on a little 1-inch trackpad, if you want to get across the whole screen, it's going to have a very high sensitivity. That could be very frustrating. So I just feel like that trackpad will not be a great experience. So you may not want to play a game like Slay the Spire, or you might want to use, console or controllers, like the controller, just like you would on Switch, which is fine. But then there's other games too that you're primarily using a mouse, and this may not work really great for it. And that's the biggest thing that's going to happen with these portable PC devices, which, by the way, this is not the first one. There are other ones. If you look around, there are other PC devices. The other PC devices are actually a lot more expensive, but we'll talk about that in a second. But here's the biggest thing with this device is Steam has done a great job of bringing PC gaming together, right? To buy all your games in one place. You could conceivably just buy all your games on Steam. Just forgetting about Epic right now. Buy all your games on Steam, have them all in one place, know where they are, have all your saves in the cloud with Steam. That is awesome. I mean, that's really awesome. But every game has a different experience. And how acceptable will it be to play a variety of games that you play, having a different experience from when you are using your mouse or your keyboard to not? There's going to be some selection of games where you're going to be like, I don't want to play that game portably. And then you go, I will only play that game portably. I can play it portably for a short amount of time because the device is heavy and I have to put it down. Battery life. Skyrim is just killing the performance on this thing. I don't like playing that game because I can only play for a short time before the battery dies on me. It's going to be... You don't get the shared experience of what you do on a Switch or a Vita or most portables. Everything's going to be different. There are, like I said, there's going to be games that aren't customized for this. Maybe the font's too small. You can't get it big enough. Just all sorts of things where the controls don't work. So we're going to have to see kind of where that goes. And the other thing, too, is Valve has a very poor history with Steam devices. They've put a lot of these Steam things out there. The Steam controller, which was one of the weirdest looking controllers you've ever seen, didn't do well. Steam Link, they're always trying to bring PC gaming into different areas. Nothing has really stuck. So the Steam Deck is like, well, is this going to stick? Is this what we want it to be? We're looking at pictures and we're hearing some things, but is this the experience that we really wanted? Is this the true PC experience in your hands? That remains to be seen, because honestly, as well as Steam has done with their games, with the price of games, with everything, their hardware has, I've not heard the best things about Steam hardware, and they haven't done what's promised. On the other hand, this feels like the Wii U to the Switch upgrade. Remember when the Wii U came out and we were like, whoa, cool. I remember the first video we saw from the Wii U when the person wanted to watch the baseball game and they were playing the Wii U, and they just pulled it onto the gamepad screen and played on the gamepad screen. It was a bit of a lie because some games needed both screens, but I think they used New Super Mario Brothers U. That was cool. You're like, oh, cool, I could just play it portably now. But there was like that limitation of, but you got to stay near your Wii U. You got to be in the living room. I remember trying to bring my Wii U. We all tried to bring the Wii U into the bathroom. And you're like, damn, like, it's a little glitchy. It's there's too many walls between. I can't really go to the bathroom with this thing. But when the Switch came out, we were all like, this is what we wanted the Wii U to be. And this Steam Link kind of feels like that, like a Steam Deck, sorry. This is sort of what we wanted. We didn't need a better controller. We could just get a PlayStation controller. We didn't need the Steam Link. I'll just play in my room on my desk or whatever. I need to be able to play this game anywhere. And so maybe that's what we're going to get here. So we'll see. But yeah, the last thing about it too is there are other portable PCs in the market. If you do a search, there's some Kickstarters, there's some other devices. You'll notice they're more expensive, much more expensive. And I've seen some people say, how is this device so cheap? I mean, this is like $400 and it's got a 7-inch screen and all this jazz. And the answer is, it's because it costs more than $400 to make. Even Gabe Newell, who's kind of, I don't know, he's the president of Valve or whatever, but we know who he is. He said the price point is painful. So they are either losing money, and I can't know, but they're either losing money or they are making very little money. And that is probably why that there was only a limited amount available for December. And if you want to pre-order now, you're going to have to wait till next year, because they really do want to get some feedback. And I think they didn't want to sell, 10 million of these things and lose money on it. They need to see what's going to happen. It does make me worry a little bit for the lifetime of this device. At some point, will they decide they're just losing money? This isn't bringing people into the Steam ecosystem, which is what they want, right? They want people who are newer to PC gaming to buy this and then go buy games in Steam. They said you can install Windows Fresh on here, whatever. They don't want you going to Epic Games Store. They want you to go to their store. That's where they're going to make their money. It's the same way if you buy a Switch and then don't buy any Nintendo games. Nintendo doesn't really care about that. They want you to buy their games. So, I'm curious to know what everyone else thinks. Is this something that you're pre-ordering? I think I saw a couple people were able to pre-order it. What are your worries about it? Do you have any concerns about it? Are you a PC gamer with concerns about how it will be to play on this device, or play your particular game that you like on this device? Or you're not concerned about? And I would love to know if people want to buy this system in order to quote unquote dock it. I mean, it doesn't come with a dock, but we talked about you can hook it up to a USB port. Is this something that you would be interested in setting up a monitor at home? Like if you were not into PC gaming, setting up a monitor and then buying this so you can play it portably, and then you just hook it up to that dock, and then, you're going to buy a keyboard and buy a mouse and be able to play. Is this going to get you into it? I can say for me that I would not do that. If I got this so I can move into PC gaming, this would be the only thing I would play games on. I would not want to switch between input. That's too much, too wild to change. But let me know. We've also seen, this is kind of funny actually, for whatever reason, nobody likes the console wars. But we're seeing a lot of talk about this is the Switch killer and all that jazz. And look what I could do on this device. And, I've had to do my share of, just play what you want to play, man. This isn't a Switch killer. It's not a Nintendo system. How is it going to be a Switch killer? Like, the PC would be a Switch killer, right? You're going to say this is portable. I mean, the PlayStation Vita did not sell that much. You know, the Game Gear, the Turbo Express were both technically superior to Game Boy in every way. And they got murdered by the Game Boy. It's one of the top-selling consoles of all time. It is not just about your specs. It's about your specs, but it's about your cost. Game Boy was much cheaper than those devices. And it's about the games and your experiences with those games on the console. That's what I think is going to be a thing here, is that you're trying to make PC games that are designed for sitting on a computer play well on a 7-inch screen with 1-inch touchpads. It is not the walled experience that you really wanted. But if you want this, great, man. This is awesome. You know, hopefully you get a Switch too. I want to point out this one particular one. This one is hilarious. This is full on console war garbage. I can't stand it. It drives you crazy. This is from a Twitter user, just me H my girls for. I don't know, whatever. Just my girls for. I don't know. Name's Carlos Fernandez. I'm calling him out. Calling him out because this is like a pro-con list of Steam Deck versus Switch. I got to read this to you. It's hilarious. So, the pros for the Steam Deck. Play Switch games on Yuzu emulator. Okay. We're going to steal Switch games. We can play Switch on a Steam Deck. Play PC games. Okay. Install Windows OS. All right. Install any software, including other game stores like Epic. Xbox Game Pass. Play games of PS1, PS2, NES, N64, GameCube, Sega Genesis, all the systems, right? All emulation stuff. Great. Watch Netflix. Okay. Use mouse and keyboard, PlayStation controller, Xbox controller, or even Switch Pro controller. Those are the pros for the Steam Deck. Here's the pros for the Switch. Plays Switch games. Now, this sort of like triggered me, like it probably shouldn't have. But first off, saying that on a Steam Deck you can play Switch games using an emulator, fuck off, man. This will always be my biggest. Man, I can't stand this. Even going back to when I was selling software for BOS, and literally going on LimeWire, yes, LimeWire, and seeing people sort of pirate my software, it just pisses you off because you are putting so much effort and energy into building software, building games, and then people just take them. And they'll say things like, oh yeah, I own this game or whatever. We had a guy in my Switch group on Facebook. I'll never forget this. And if Kevin's listening, he knows exactly who I'm talking about. But this guy showed up to a Switch party. This is at Kevin's house. And we've had him on the show. And he shows up to a Switch party. We had never met him before. He was new to the group. And he shows up to a Switch party where we're here to play games, have food. We're going to do trivia and all that. And he's got with him a Wii U system that he has hacked. And it's not working well, but he wanted to hook it up to Kevin's TV to show his like hacked Wii U. But it wasn't working right. And so he started like opening this thing up on a carpeted floor, and he's like trying to fix it, and he's got some tools, and then he's asking Kevin like, oh, do you have some electrical tape and stuff like that? And it's like, this guy is just sitting here. He spent a couple hours at least trying to fix this thing. What? So he can show us that he can play a PlayStation game on it or something like that. Look, you're stealing, man. You're stealing. That's what it is. You can't say the Steam Deck plays all Switch games. That's stealing. And don't tell me, oh, I own it, so I can. Well, sure, if you're doing that, then fine, it's not stealing, okay? But yeah, but we all know people are doing this because they're stealing. Well, anyways, in that story, this guy was constantly talking about emulation, and he started playing. God, what game was it? He started playing. I think it was Age of Calamity, like 5 days early, and someone was like, "How are you playing this game already?" And it was like, "Oh, because he stole it." And eventually we threw him out of the group. And he was so mad that he got thrown out of the group. And it's like, dude, you're in a Switch group talking about the games you're playing. And he was like yelling at people saying, if you don't play this game, you're an idiot. It's so good. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't exist yet, dude. Okay. And And plus, don't brag to me that on the Steam Deck you can install Windows. Okay, you can install operating systems on a Vita. Every time they put out a portable device, there was the NES Classic. They're trying to install Linux on there, right? I don't care. That's not the experience I'm there for. I don't want Windows on my Steam Deck. I'm not going to edit PowerPoint presentations. So this is a bit of a stretch. So yes, you can play PC games. Yeah, that's great. You can play games like on the Epic Store. That's fantastic. Those are all PC games, right? You can play Game Pass on it. Okay, I can play Game Pass on my iPhone. I can play Game Pass on a lot of devices I already own. And that's another thing. Watching Netflix. Okay, why didn't you just throw Hulu in there? I can watch Netflix. Right now I can watch Netflix on my cell phone, on my TV in my office, on my TV in my living room, on my iPad, on my Wii U, on my Wii. Unlimited, let alone all the devices my kids have. You can watch Netflix anywhere. Do I wish I had Netflix on my Switch? I mean, I'll take it. It's a free app. I'm not paying for it. But like, does it bother me from day to day? No, not at all. It doesn't bother me at all. I have my Apple TV. I have my Roku. I don't need Netflix on my Switch. It's the last device I would ever watch Netflix on. But do I want it? Great. But it doesn't keep me up at night. It's not the reason why I'm going to go and get a Steam Deck instead of a Switch. And then, of course, using mouse and keyboard and PlayStation controllers and Xbox controllers. That's great. I don't need those controllers. I have a Switch. I have a Switch Pro controller. I have a Switch Joy-Con. I have the standard controls, which is why every game will behave exactly as it's expected to. I don't have to, I'm going to run the PlayStation controller, but it doesn't work great with the analog sticks. Or there's no support for the PS5 controllers yet. I once spent an hour at my desk trying to get one of my controllers, I can't remember which one, to work with Steam on Mac, and I couldn't do it, okay? It's not the experience you want. When I get a Switch, I have a Switch. Just like if I get a Vita, I have a Vita. Or any console. That's why I like consoles. If you buy a PlayStation 5, great. You can play PlayStation 5 games. You got a nice PlayStation 5 shop. You did not buy the PlayStation 5 to install Windows on it. I think we just got to get away from the console war stuff. Whether you're getting one or not, it doesn't mean you have to join a tribe. You don't have to, be on Team Switch or Team Steam Deck. We can have independent opinions of each. I can tell you for one thing, the Steam Deck is not going to kill the Switch. There's a whole lot the Steam Deck don't do. And it's also a more expensive device. And the reason why Nintendo's always been successful is because their devices are always at a really good price point. And honestly, the Switch would be less than $300 today. I mean, you can get a Switch Lite for $200, but the Switch would be less than $300 today if its sales weren't just so freaking good. The only reason why it hasn't had a price drop is because it sells out constantly. So why on earth would they do a price drop? I mean, they're not doing a price drop to be nice. They're doing a price drop to keep up with the market. And I don't think the Steam Deck is going to change that for the Switch. Now, if the Steam Deck, when it comes out in December, because it's not a device that exists right now, when the Steam Deck comes out in December, if they notice that Switch sales are starting to slide, yeah, we might get a price drop to like $250. Sure. Totally. And if there is one thing I love about the Steam Deck, is that it's going to push Nintendo a little bit on hardware. They don't need to compete with the Steam Deck, but when the Steam Deck is out there versus the Switch, and there's some things that are just missing or lacking, or whatever, it will keep Nintendo's pricing in check, because before, you didn't have a comparison. The closest comparison to the Switch we had was the Vita. And trust me, Vita people love to remind you about the Vita. And the Vita was a fine device. I didn't hate my Vita. The only problem that I had with the Vita was it wasn't comfortable to hold, it didn't dock, it didn't have good games, the controls were uncomfortable to use. Yeah, like everything about the Vita. But, you know what I mean? You had a somewhat kind of comparison, but not really. Now you kind of do. Like, this isn't a dockable thing with removable controllers that plays these games and that games, but every time if the Switch 2 comes out, you're going to look at the price and say, okay, how does that compare to a Steam Deck? That sort of thing. So Nintendo does have to be careful. And then hopefully, yeah, it'll push them to, get more software on there, give some other way to play, and maybe make a more powerful device that we wanted to see that we didn't get from the Pro LED. So, yeah. It'll be very interesting to see how long Valve supports this. They're going to be losing money. They're not going to be making much money on it. I think once we see from Valve, once Valve sees how much extra business it's bringing to their Steam community, if they're making a lot of money by people buying this and creating new accounts and buying lots of games, and they feel like it's worth it, then they'll keep going with it. But I can really see Valve just going away from this within a year. If they feel like, it's just, it is not Valve's job to prop up PC gaming. It is their job to make more people use Steam. And if this doesn't work to do that, then they're not going to support it anymore. It's going to go away. It's why PlayStation stopped supporting the Vita. It didn't sell enough, and it wasn't bringing enough revenue for, they were losing money on that. They were not making money on the Vita hardware. They were making on the software and maybe the memory. And when they figured out that they weren't making that much money from it, they dropped it. They're not there to make a cool device and, subsidize it extremely for you. So we'll see by next year. I think the reason why you're not seeing any other sales till Q2 is because they're going to use Q1 to evaluate the success of this product. And that's it. They're not going to sell 80 to 120 million units of this. It's not going to sell like the Switch. Their market is non-PC people, or PC people that are willing to have a portable device as like a second device. But there are a lot of PC people that are hardcore that they want to sit in their chair and play. And they're not going to do a little less powerful device that's portable, that sits along their computer for $500. So we'll be very curious. When this thing comes out, and Drew or I are not going to have one, but let me make sure we kind of see what kind of experience this is with all of the games. And yeah, just let us know what you guys think about this one. We're going to talk about it again probably a little bit next week when Drew is on. And let us know. Did you grab it? How excited for you? And where do you see yourself playing it? And most importantly, what games are you excited to play with it? You going to play Elden Ring on it? Let us know. But anywho, that'll do it for this episode. Thanks for listening. Take us away, Sadie.
The Dads After Dark show is a part of the Nintendo Dads family of podcasts. You can subscribe to us anywhere podcasts are available, including iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher. Be sure to join us on the Nintendo Dads Discord in the Dads After Dark show channel for some naughty After Dark talk. Follow us on Twitter at @NDadsAfterDark. Ask us a question, and we may answer it on the show. That's all for tonight. Good night, Dads. Sweet dreams.